Three things in life are certain: death, taxes, and kakank. Yes, yes, y'all. To the beat, y'all. We're back again. You know what, guys? I love this time. This time of year smells like Wednesday. It smells like Wednesday, 8 p.m. EST with notes of pollen, a little hibiscus,
and tax deficit.
It's a deficit. Well, hello. It must be pencil to pencil season. Welcome back to your favorite live cast, brought to you by three expert cartoonists. You know what to do with your arm. Pinch it. You must be dreaming, but no, you're awake, and you're looking at your video scope where greatness is upon you. Guys, welcome back to the podcast. This is Pencil to Pencil. I am your first host. My name is Jamar Nicholas. I wear many hats besides this one. I am the second vice president of the National Cartoonist Society. This summer, we are going to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the NCS. The Rubin Awards will take place in Columbus, Ohio, in conjunction with the Billy Ireland Museum. If you ever been to the Billy, oh man, you need to make the pilgrimage. It's hot. Also, in the Philadelphia chapter, chair, go Birds. Last thing, I have a new book coming out. I have a series at Scholastic Graphics. I had a little piece of news about that happened to be over the weekend. You'll enjoy. Leon and the Big Problem will be in stores January 2027. We just went over the hump. But Steve, what should they do when they pre-order?
They should cop it, and there's no excuses not to cop it.
No, cop it. Why don't you? Guys, I would be remiss if I did not introduce. You know who he is. We told you Al Gore's internet said that. I got to do it one more time because it's so ridiculous. Al Gore said that internet is not a large truck. It is a series of tubes. And walking along those tubes on your internet superhighway, you wouldn't like him when he's angry. By God, it must be Stone Cold Steve Conley. What's up, Steve Conley?
Gentlemen, it is so good to see you. My name is Steve Conley. I write and draw your 23rd favorite webcomic, The Middle Age, which you can read over on Webtoons, Tapas, Go Comics, and over on middleagecomic.com.
Yes.
And now in digestible comic book form.
What?
This is something that is made for my Patreon supporters.
Show it again.
Look,
oh, and, that looks great, Steve.
So yeah, I'm super happy with it. It not so bad.
What tier is that?
Favorite webcomic. What's that?
What Patreon tier is that?
$10 or more. What a great question. But yeah, you just get this comic mailed to you. There's going to be a kind of a regular edition for the non-Patreon folk, but this is the one, and this is the cover, and it's kind of the cover dress is a bit like a Barry Windsor Smith Conan. One of the things they had at the top of one of the Barry Windsor Smith Conan covers was first time in comic book form, and so I had to put that on the top of mine as well. But I also make Teach RPG stuff. If you play the Dungeons and the Dragons, I make that stuff too. Find it all at steveconley.com. And a card-carrying member of the National Cartoonist Society. Go Garfields. But I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the Tower of Power and the Manny Hour Too Sweet to Be Sour, Dark Hawk's daddy. And recently back from a convention up north, and boy, are his arms tired, Mr. Mike Manley.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I just did a fantastic convention up in Concord, New Hampshire, the Little Giant Old School Comic Book Show, which I did last Thursday. I arrived. We had a preview on Friday, and then the show was Saturday, and Jason Brodnick and his whole crew were fantastic. His buddy EJ, who lives like near me, drove me up, so that was great, and I really had a fantastic time. And I literally heard all weekend, you drew my childhood. I signed, seems like hundreds and hundreds of comics. I think I signed more comics yesterday. At the show than except for that time I signed 5,000 copies of Batman 500 for the QVC.
Wow.
A lot of great people, a lot of great food. I got to. I'm going to share my screen here in just a second.
Steve, you want to pick this up?
Can you see that?
Yes.
So I'm sitting there and I'm signing, and I look up and I'm like, what?
Amazing.
Fine gentleman who is sporting a Dark Hawk helmet and amulet that he made. That was just so strange and wonderful at the same time, because I'd only once before seen a Dark Hawk cosplay. I think at some Chicago Con several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this was. And so he had two helmets.
Now, did he make those, or what's the history of these guys? Where did this come from?
He printed it, 3D printed it.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he first made the small one,
mm-hmm.
which he couldn't wear, and then he made the bigger one.
Amazing.
And then I actually put it on. And then when I put it on, I realized that Darkhawk couldn't see shit.
Here's a design flaw.
There's the design flaw that my character radar or whatever. That it's funny because when you look at this stuff, you think, oh yeah, your character can see, but you realize, like, wow, if you were actually wearing that, you really couldn't. So he, the fact that he's sort of like a cyborg or a robot body, I guess, he has, like Iron Man. When you look at Tony Stark's got the Iron Man's got those two little squares on his face, those two little rectangles, right? And you realize, like, he couldn't see anything, right? So you see in the film, they always show that he can see. He has all these like video screens or whatever inside of it.
His heads up display, right?
Yeah. But you realize, wow, there's so many things that work as a comic, but there's a lot of characters in real life really couldn't see very well.
Hey, Mike, our buddy Horatio Hellpop says Darkhawk is so cool, man. Thank you for our hero. I love it. Look at that. Mike's getting all the love.
And then I had breakfast with Al Milgram and Danny Fingeroth and Keith Williams. So that was fun. There was a bunch of other people there, Dan Jurgens and Brett Breeding and Mike Royer. There were a lot of people there. So
how was the I'm sure everybody was making money. I hope. Was the vibe good with all the creators?
Oh, it was a great vibe. It was super fun. There's some of my remarks.
What's
like everything?
Yeah.
So you draw. Not only do you sign your name, but then you draw on the comic, which is not easy. So I got those. What is it? Posca.
The Posca markers,
Yeah, so you have to sort of figure out, like, okay, like, how am I gonna? Sometimes I would put down a whole thing of white and kind of like make a shape, and then I would draw on top of the shape.
Oh, that's good.
And I did this little thing for the
this whole thing.
Inkwell Awards.
Nice,
great.
And then I got this great gift somebody made. One of the fine folks there made took a bunch of images from Darkhawk and made this. I'm trying to think what that's called.
A collage, right?
Well, it's a collage, but it's also raised up. Decoupage or something.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you mean.
It's
kind of like embossed or something.
Yeah, my mom used to make stuff like that when I was when I was a kid. I remember her doing that. So
Hey, so wait, that was a gift for you. You went home with that.
for me, yeah.
Man, did you have to put that on a roof? Jeez, that's huge.
No, it fit very nicely in my bag.
That's great.
Mike, our buddy Sandra Peel asks, anyone you hadn't seen in a while that was really noteworthy for yourself, Mike? You run into
I don't
anybody?
think I had seen Al Milgram since I was 17.
Wow.
Wow, that's a minute.
Because I saw him at a convention in, I think it was like either Farmington or Novi, Michigan, because we're both from Michigan. And I remember Walt Simonson was there, and he had just drawn the last Cylon story for Battlestar Galactica. So he was there. Mike Rosberg was there, I think, and somebody else was there, but I don't remember exactly now. But anyway, so I remember meeting Al there. And it's funny because I was talking to Blevins earlier, and I was saying, I never saw him when he worked at Marvel. So I think he must have left editorial staff at Marvel before I started working, because I never worked in his office, and I never remember seeing him in the office. So, but yeah, so we had a great time connecting, because I was a big fan of his stuff, and the stuff he was doing with Jim Starlin, Adam Warlock. And then I remember he went and he did the guy with the flaming hair.
Firestorm?
Firestorm?
Yeah. Firestorm, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was fun, and catching up with Keith, who I hadn't seen in a long time. Tom DeFalco, who I hadn't seen since I actually worked at Marvel. So we're talking the old Marvel before it blew up. So, some of those folks I haven't seen in 30 years, or in Al's case, it's probably close to 50 years.
Wow.
That's great. It seems like you guys have a great thing on your hands. I'd like to see the reunion tour. You should take that on the road.
Yeah, and good to see Danny, because I haven't seen Danny, I think, since we did that Wizard show.
Yeah, I remember that. We took lots of pictures there. Well, I'm glad that you had a great event, Mike.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and a lot of really nice people. It's like I said when I was there, it's funny how 20 years makes something nostalgic, 30 years makes something classic. And when I was doing Darkhawk, it never seemed like it was that hot a thing. Wolverine was the hot thing, X-Men was the hot thing, Punisher was the hot thing. But I think Marvel was doing something right at that time, which was they were starting all these new books. So there's all these kids who are now middle-aged who
speak for yourself.
They started buying that stuff. That was their Spider-Man.
That was their thing, right? Yeah, it was their entrance point.
One, and they could go all the way through. And so it's nice to know that something like that obviously meant a lot to people.
Yeah, I love it. And if there's anything that I can take away from this, is that maybe what you're doing right now may not be whatever in your head, but somewhere somebody's watching, and somebody's looking, and someone's collecting, and someone is ripping up the pages and pinning them on their wall. And then at some point in the future, they're going to come find you. And I hope you have a good interaction with them.
Well, the business was so completely different because there was no internet, right?
Yeah.
So you had no idea really how a book or a character was being received until the 4th or the 5th issue. Because everybody dies number 1, everybody slash orders on number 2, and then maybe with 3 and 4, the numbers would either go back up or they would continue to go down, which is what happens with most comics, they continue to go down. So I probably did 4 or 5 issues before you start getting feedback. Because don't forget, the way distribution used to work was that you ordered 3 months ahead. If you're in July, you're ordering books for September. So you don't know how that book is going to do until maybe October.
Right.
So
everything's on delay.
Yeah, you don't have people going to the store that week and going just shit bombing you right away or saying you're the best thing ever immediately. You had no idea really how well your book was or your work was received for a while, which in some respects was probably good because there's a lot of anxiety when you're doing something, and then people immediately can't wait to be the first one to shitpost on you. There's that aspect of the internet, like, oh man, I can't wait to see the new Star Trek. I'm going to be the first person to go on my Facebook and, shitpost about it. That just didn't exist.
Right. Yeah, we're in a whole different ball game now. And I think that would be a great segue for our guest tonight. Let me cue up that banner, you guys. Let me make sure he's sitting in his chair. Guys, Ben Harvey is with us tonight. I'm very excited to have this gentleman on. Ben and I have a storied past, not checkered, a storied past that you're probably going to hear all about tonight. I'm very excited. Ben, if you are not familiar with his face, you're probably familiar with his work. He is a very in-demand illustrator and doing a lot of cover work in the mainstream Marvel covers, DC covers, some of the bigger small presses, and also things in between. One of my favorite stories is I was in the comic book store tried to have a comic book signing, but the kids in the store were too busy slapping through the poster rack. Remember the poster rack?
Sure.
Right, and these are like 20, 21-year-old dudes, and they're like, yo, look at that, that's hot. And I was like, what are you guys looking at? Move over. And it was Ben Harvey's Ghost Rider cover that Marvel had made a poster out of. And I was just like, yo, this is fantastic. So I'm very proud of Ben. I don't want to kind of spoil our episodes. I'll let him talk about his career up to this point, what he's working on next, and what's on his plate currently. So guys, let's get ready for rendering. Please welcome our good buddy, Ben Harvey. Ping! You've been rendered, Ben.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Am I coming in clear? All right, hello. I made it to the Matrix.
Hello from space. Hello. Hey, how are you, Ben?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I'm good. Let's just start off hot, Ben. There a couple of months ago, there's the comic book cycle where somebody's talking about something and then it kind of dies down and then somebody starts a new chain. And there was one point where people were talking about cover artists. Mm-hmm. And now cover artist is kind of like its own animal inside of comics now. There used to be like a split, like there are interior guys, and now there's interior guys and cover guys, or there's an interior guy that does a cover. And can you kind of explain exactly what you're doing these days in the comic space?
Well, to get technical about it, I'm just a cover. I would say like not really I do covers, but I consider myself like an illustrator. That and as like all you folks know here in the chat and out there, as being an artist, you kind of keep your feet in a few different ponds, when you're working in this industry. And so I don't not only do cover work for Marvel and DC, I'm also working with Wizards of the Coast, doing Magic the Gathering cards as well. And I've also moved into doing game work too for video game publishers and developers a few years ago. So yeah, it's a I wouldn't say like I am a cover artist when it comes to comics, but I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to my work. It's a diverse, array of places where your artwork can land these days.
That's I when I talk about myself sometimes. Hold on, Bill. What up, Bill? Bill O'Donnell says, Ben, can you say what card series the Magic cards are, or are they not out yet?
Well, so far they've only released the Spidey set that I think launched late last year, if I'm not mistaken, or earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only tip of the iceberg. I've been working with them for about 3 years or so now. Yeah, so way more of that coming. I just can't talk about it.
Yeah.
All NDA, yeah.
Yeah, we're big fans of NDAs here on Pencil to Pencil. We're going to name the podcast. I can't talk about it yet. So I was going to say, sometimes when I talk about myself, I like to talk about that very old vaudeville act of the guy spinning plates on little tiny sticks. It is like, right? And I don't feel like I'm alone in that. And, we talk a lot, and you always have a bunch of plates spinning. So maybe can you talk about maybe your, not necessarily workflow, but like how many things do you have spinning at once? And then when do you feel like you need to drop one or add one? Like, or is there a comfort zone where you have to have at least 3 things going at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like being in like a part-time job, like a Joe job where, there's your boss is always telling you there's always something to do. Only you're that guy,
Right.
So yeah, whenever there's always something to do in the studio. I tend to like, for me personally, I don't like to overwhelm myself. I learned that the hard way. I believe it was 2 years ago when my Marvel and DC career just started to come into fruition. And I was like, sometimes I was like in the summer, I think of that year, I was probably like 3 or 4 covers at a time deep at one time. And I was like, I had to like talk to a bunch of my editors, and I hate doing those. I'm sure you guys know, like, you just hate sending out those emails saying like, hey, I can't make it this week. Yeah, I'm sorry. I may have to like move it. We may have to like think about nudging this deadline around. And I hate doing that. So I tend to kind of keep things now these days around maybe like 1 cover a week if I can, maybe 2 if I'm lucky. And I'll work on things simultaneously. So and in a given month, I'll maybe do like, if I'm doing 1 a week, obviously it's 4, but maybe 4.5, maybe 5, so, and it gives me enough room to like keep this from becoming like, I turn into like a mole man, being in the studio all day and not seeing daylight. I like to kind of like balance my life out so that, I get to do what I love, but also get to do other things that I love too at the same time. So, yeah.
How can you love other things? That's wrong.
Blasphemy.
And was taking on all those jobs. Was that the kind of the thing at the start where you just say yes to every project? Like, oh, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Sure. Yeah. At the beginning, it was definitely like that, Steve. You're just happy to be here. And I'm still, in a way, I'm still happy to be here. I'm so, so lucky to have what I have in my life, and the talent that I have. So, I did initially say yes to a lot of things, but then, like I said, like that summer of 2024, I was like, my God, what am I doing to myself? The remaining hairs of my head are falling out.
Those are things too. When you get to the point where you start getting work, and people are calling you, you want to say yes. It's like you were so hungry for so long,
right?
Have people wanting to work for you. But yeah, I do think that also when you're still early enough in your career that you have to give yourself margin for error, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, how long does it take you to do a Wizard of the Coast card versus a Spider-Man card versus, something else? So I know that because overbooked myself before, and you have to figure out like what's that sweet spot, because you don't want to say no, because there's always a part of you as a freelancer that if you say no, they'll never call back.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and also I want to keep the quality high too. You know, I'd hate turning in something that isn't up to my standards.
Yeah.
I've turned things in before, and my editors hate me for this, but I've turned things in before in a rush, and I've emailed them back maybe 2-3 weeks later. Like, hey, remember that cover we turned in like a month ago? It's not due for FOC anytime soon. Can I go back in and muddle with some things, tinker with some things, here and there? And they're so awesome that they're usually glad to, work with you on getting a new version put in. But yeah, as long as like if I can keep, the quality high and the like you said, Mike, the sweet spot, like the quality high, but also like my coffer is full of work. That's where I like to live.
So Ben, for people that have been around for a while, they know that we kind of have a link. And also, if you're familiar with me, you know that I've had several projects, some that got further than others. And Ben and I have some water underneath our boat from back in the day with some projects. So maybe this would be a good time to give us your origin story. We had a really good origin story last week with Matt Haley. I don't know if yours matches driving into the Mojave Desert without a job with all your stuff in the backseat. But maybe tell everybody kind of how you got kind of started in cartooning and kind of how you got here.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I've known Mike for a few years, and Steve. Unfortunately, I just met Steve at the show, and maybe before at a convention we can't figure that out. But I've known Jamar for probably like 30 years going at this point, boss. Maybe like 35.
Yeah.
It's a long time. Yeah. It's mind blowing. I initially started out doing stuff in my book, like not even like a sketchbook, just like wanting to draw shapes in like books and things like that. If you want to go far back, and that turned into like latching onto other kids in my classes. This is like in grade school. That were also doing art, and I was like, I want to do that, and I saw how good they were drawing, and like, why can't I do that? I want to do that too. Mm-hmm. And that led to after school programs, art camps, and that led to me meeting Jamar Nicholas at one of those art camps one year, and it was the first time up to that point in my life that I had ever seen an adult doing art, not just art, but like comic art. Mm-hmm. It was the coolest friggin' thing to me as a kid, being like, as old as I was. And then after all that, I kept in touch with Jamar over the years into like high school and into like college and things like that. And it led to a point where I met a fellow illustrator, Nam Kim. He's no longer, I don't think he's doing comics anymore, but he was starting his own comic book studio, like right within like the Philadelphia area. And I was like, that's pretty cool. It's something you only hear about in like, only hear about on the West Coast, with like Image Comics starting up out there, or you hear about New York comic book studios. That doesn't happen around here. So I had to go talk to this guy, Nam, and Jamar introduced me to him, and I interned with him for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, that was a minute. Right? You guys,
like 4 or 5 years doing just. I was the fill-in artist for him. He got he was in with Tokyo Pop. You guys remember Tokyo Pop? It was like the early manga. Publisher here in the States, and I was his fill-in artist. He would draw, say, like a head on a page, and then I would come in, and it was me and two other guys working in the studio, which I'm all friends with still. And one guy was the background artist. We had another guy that was good with like mechanical drawing. He was the mechanical guy. I did pretty decent hands back then, so I was the hand guy. I would go in and draw. He would draw like a whole body, then he would leave the hands out, and I would go and fill in the hands for him. And the pay sucked. The pay was awful. I got paid absolutely nothing. The studio wound up dissolving after about like I said, like 3 or 4 years. But we got some things published out of that. We did a if you look back far enough, there is a Star Wars manga with my name on it and Nam Kim's name on it, and the other guys that are working in the studio. That came out under Tokyo Pop and a few other things too. But let's fast forward a few years. I'm freelancing. I'm working part-time jobs here and there, just kind of trying to take care of bills and things like that. And I meet a coworker of mine who's still a good friend of mine. He Chris is his name. He worked years ago on Ninja Turtles, doing the interior art, cover art, and things like that. And he saw my work. I was just sitting in my cubicle just doodling, and we got to chatting one day. And he's like, "Yeah, I still do turtle comics, but on like a regular basis." And I'm like, my time freezes. You enter bullet time. You're like, "What? You're still doing turtle comics?" The window's open. Jump through it, idiot. So yeah, that led to me talking to him, letting me get in touch with an editor of his that he still worked with, and that led to my very first like solely published work. It was like a Nickelodeon kids Turtles comic that came out back in it had to be like 2014, 15, around there, maybe even earlier. And from there, that's when the dam broke. As soon as you have that first published piece of art, you can take that and run with it. That led into doing a lot of variants and things like that. I started out doing like variants for like horror comics and things like that. Aftershock was a publisher for a while, and I did a whole slew of like Aftershock horror covers, which ranged in quality from mid to okay, but I was getting my footing. And then that led to the ultimate meeting with me. Within all this time, I was going to like Wizards cons and things like that back in the day, and eventually that turned into like fan expos and New York Comic Cons and New York Anime Expos and all that stuff. I was still doing a lot of Comic Con work. Jamar had got me into my first one back in like the early aughts, and then I had eventually started doing all that stuff like solo on my own for years, and it led to me ultimately meeting with Marvel does these like portfolio reviews of these shows, and eventually I got to sit down with some of their editors, and this is probably like in 2012, I'm going to say. And then and a lot of the guys here can probably like had this experience. You sit down with these editors and look at your stuff and like, hey, if you're lucky enough to even get to sit down with them, that's only the first part. The rest of the part is actually them liking your work and giving you work, and so they sat me down one of these shows, and they were like, hey, hey, this is good stuff. But you're a little rough on the edges, kid. You may want to brush yourself up, and we'll keep in touch. That's what they said. We'll keep in touch, And so that eventually led into one Fan Expo Philly. I had gotten to sit down with the one and only CB Sapluski. I finally got to. I met him before in passing, but I had never had actual sit down with him at a convention. He was doing portfolio reviews, and he was familiar with my work. They keep files on you at Marvel. If you submit stuff to them, and they're familiar with my face, so they were like, "Okay, I think you're ready. I think this is it." And so that was it. The onboarding process started, and my first cover gig was Predator comic. I think Predator #6 or something like that, like a long time ago. And yeah, it was, the rest was history, you know.
Wow. And where does the time go? Right. It just feels like we just got started.
Right.
And
right.
Ben, how much of the internet do you think was helpful for you? Was it just kind of like a vessel to get in, well, not a vessel, kind of like a bridge to get in touch with people? Because it seemed like you were still doing your early things in person. Like you met CB at a show and you talked to this other cat at a Wizard World. Do you feel
Right.
like that's kind of changed to where you are now and everything's kind of dealing with people you've never met?
Yeah, the internet was definitely a huge tool in my origin story. Like I'm not really like a huge social media guy. You know, I tend to like, I'm an email texter if I'm going to share something with anybody, you know. But yeah, even before that, I was probably on like GeoCities or something like that. That was like, I'm like old school, you know. Not Facebook, I'm sorry, MySpace.
Didn't you have a DeviantArt?
DeviantArt, yeah, all those places. Yeah, I frequented most of those places.
Mm.
But eventually one day, a buddy of mine, he's like, "Hey man, you're an artist. Like, why don't you put yourself on Instagram?" I'm like, "Insta what? You know, is that what the kids are on these days?" So I checked it out, and like I saw all these like other big names on there. I'm like, okay, this is a thing. So it really helped definitely get some more eyeballs on my work for sure. I was posting a lot of just stuff I was doodling, you know, and I was doing a lot more commissions back, I say about 10 years ago or so. I was posting all that stuff. And it's a good way to really organically grow your work and get your name out there. I wish I did more of it these days. I'm so busy with other things in my life that I don't get to post as often as I'd like to. So, but yeah, it's social media is like it can be like you know, there's downsides to the social media, obviously, but for an artist, it can be a really huge tool for leveling the career up, you know.
I'm going to start going through your Insta. So there's a couple of questions in the chat, or if Mike or Steve want to ask you anything. As I try to find the thing I just clicked on, it just disappeared.
Yeah, we got a question here from Bill O'Donnell on the YouTubes. A question for Ben. How is working with Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering deadlines versus comic deadlines?
They're both pretty similar, I would say. It really depends on how tight the deadlines are. Sometimes you have editors that will come to you with like a week's worth of time to do a cover. Like, I'm really desperate, man. Could you help me out? You know, Wizards of the Coast, they really, I think they're a little more relaxed. So far, I mean, I've only worked for them like 2 or 3 years. They'll give you more than enough time to, I think, do your work, you know. And obviously because, you know, I'm not sure about all their sets that they work on, but the sets that I work on tend to release slowly. So they aren't like up against like a deadline that's like 2 or 3 months away, or it has to be solicited for 2 or 3 months before it releases. So yeah, definitely comic publishers tend to be a little tighter with deadlines. Yeah.
So I put your Insta up, and we're kind of scrolling through there. This is a lot of, Ben, almost everything on here published covers, because you don't really have time to do any kind of like just for S and giggles work.
Well, I mean, I need to like put more time into doing commissions. I do owe a few people. I'm sure like a lot of like the comic sketch art fans are aware that I do owe some people like not a lot of commissions, but a few commissions from a few years ago, which you're going to get to. But yeah, after all that is done, I'm going to get back to doing, you know, more doodling, you know, just creating stuff that, you know, it's just fun stuff for, you know, for shits and giggles, like you said.
The colors are so vibrant. I love it. Who are your influences?
Oh, thank you, Steve. Let's see. Influences come from all over the place, but I'll tell you like a quick story. Like it kind of goes back to my origin story too. Is like I started out doing like manga work, obviously, like I mentioned, and that kind of flowed into doing comic work again. And the manga work is like, it's like, there's a lot of beautiful color in that too. But when it came to like me getting back into doing comic books, like the Eastern stuff, you know, I'm sorry, the Western stuff. My first like exposure to like really brilliant colors is going to go back to let me see, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm blanking at the moment. I'm sorry, guys, but there is a I found inspiration through the Hildebrandt brothers. I find inspiration through Basil Gogos. It's from all over the place. I really have a.
I felt Hildebrandt in the in some of those popped colors behind some of the like leaping figures, just gorgeous, just and so punchy, really.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, their Marvel card art was it's revolutionizing to me. You know, really opened my eyes to the world of color. The artist I was trying to think of earlier, and I'm sorry, guys, was Brian Stelfreeze.
Oh,
Seeing his work, I think I saw his work for the first time in person. He was at Boston Con one year, and he was there. And I walked by his table, and it's like head swivel. Head swivel. You're like, what is that? What is that? That's amazing. You know, and he's doing it all traditionally. And his like hues and just the color ranges he used in his pieces, you know, even when it doesn't, I don't think it even needs like a wide color range to it. He brings it every time. You
I
know?
can feel it in that Cyclops profile there, like hints of like magenta and purple in the flesh tones, and so lovely.
Yeah, thank you. I think I don't know if sure if Ross said this one time, Alex Ross, but he's always fighting. You're when you know to vision your work on like a comic shelf somewhere, and around it are like 100 different covers. Like, what are you doing to like make your cover pop out from the rest? You know, and that's what I attempt to do every time. You know, make it poppy enough that you know hopefully it stands out enough that you pick it up and read it.
So, what is your process? Are you starting traditional and going to digital, or was it all digital from the start?
Originally I was doing everything by hand. I was doing all this. I was doing like a rough thumbnail, then pumping that up to like a 11 by 17, and then working all the values and shapes that way. But then, you know, that summer, like I said, that summer of like 2024 started, you know, and I had to like, I started working all digitally from then on out. And ever since then, I'm trying to like find like a nice blend between the two. Try to make my work seem more traditional in a way. But yeah, I would love to like be able to sit down and actually do a lot of the work traditionally, maybe at least do like the grayscale traditionally that I start with, and then move up from there. You know.
So how did you start training yourself to work? Were you taking classes? Were you, you know, what was your sort of your art gym process?
Art gym process, man. I guess it's a school. Like it's like well, I guess to go back a little bit more, like I tend to be more not very organized. Oh, there's a fancier word for it, but I can't think of it at the moment. But like I'm very unorganized. Like when I started working this stuff, I'm very unorganized. You know, I kind of started with a thumbnail, obviously, then kind of worked that into like a bigger sketch, but and then kind of feel my way through it. You know, and I think me personally, like myself, I think you work in my earlier covers, like my really early stuff. You can see how unorganized I was. You know, there's not really a refinement there. And then recently, like I've kind of like I've sat down and I started to really like look at like, you know, a lot of like the classical artists and how they worked, you know, and kind of really start to break down the process. And I follow a lot of artists too that, you know, they're light years better than me, and much more just brilliant artists, and they break down their process step by step, and it's helped me kind of make more sense of what I'm doing, you know, not just try to like make this like little thumbnail, not trying to make it like a painting, try to like take that and calculate out how do I make that into like a larger painting, you know, figure out the shapes, figure out the lighting, maybe get some more reference for like, you know, clothing, for the figure, for, you know, the background, whatever it is, you know. So yeah, hope that answers your question, Mike.
Do you ever shoot, take photos or get a model or?
Yeah, funny you ask. In the past like year or so, I've been turned on to using 3D references for my models that I do use for some poses. I don't use it every time. I find I use it for stuff that's a little more difficult to kind of like, you know, get just right at a certain angle. An artist I follow, Julian Tedesco, he uses DAZ Studio 3D, and which I leached off of that, and I'm using that currently to kind of set up interesting like lighting patterns on models. It's one thing I have a hard, like you can like kind of come up with interesting shadow shapes and lighting patterns out of your head, but it's never quite the same as like when you have like an actual model standing in front of you, or like a 3D model that, you know, has it already kind of mapped out for you, you know. So that's really where, like, you know, my starting point is these days. Not all the time, like I said, I'm not using models 100% of the time. I think like if you're using models a little too much, a little too closely, sometimes it can like kind of make your work look kind of stodgy. So I will use like a model reference for maybe like 5% of the process, and then as I move up and move out, eventually I'll just like discard it altogether. I stop looking at it, you know, maybe come back to it later on at the end, you know, which is like another tip I can like give down maybe later in the conversation. But yeah.
Well, we had some of those remarks on the screen.
Yeah.
Got a question here from Guillermo. Oh boy, Guillermo Torres Basabe 2483 on YouTube.
Guillermo, what's up, buddy? He's a super fan of mine.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Ben, he says Ben is a master with remarks with Poscas. Can you share some tips
with Posca pens?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Don't let them explode on you. there is a science to, and my fiance is showing me this. There's a science to getting them what they call juicy. You have to like because you get them out of your storage bin, like I have them over here. 9 times out of 10, they're not ready to go. So you have to kind of prime them and shake them just a certain way to get them to flow right. And just make sure. It's funny that he mentions this. Like my number one tip for using Poscas is to have a blow dryer handy. The blow, like I've seen people have seen me at shows, and they've seen me kind of duck behind my display really quick, and they're like, "What you doing back there?" And I'm like, "Step back there." I have like the situation allows, I'll have like a portable blow dryer with me to like, you know, help dry the paint, because depending on the atmosphere that you're working in, it will stay wet for a while. And if it stays wet and then you like will go over top of it with another color, that color will bleed into that marker tip, and then it's a muddy mess. So
that's great.
Yeah, you wanna like, if you can, have a blow dryer handy, and it'll make things. It's like any other paint. You have to kind of let it dry, be patient with it, and it'll layer for you really well.
I learned that this weekend because it was the first time I was using them to do those remarks, and then I noticed a couple people had little mini high-speed fans.
Yep.
Like
they know.
Yeah, and because I learned that because I guess they're acrylic. And
I think so. Yeah, they're some kind of acrylic paint.
Yeah,
loaded with. Yeah,
you're drawing on a cover which is not paper that's designed to take acrylic. You'd have to put it down, and then you have to let it dry, and then you can go back over it again to make it like opaque enough.
Yeah, 100%, Mike. And it, like I said about the paper quality, it really depends on what you're laying it on. The substrate has to be just right, like your average, comic cover. 9 times out of 10, a lot of problems with. Sometimes you have those like really fancy paper covers that are like, I don't know how you can describe it. They're like space age technology paper, and you'll lay like mark over top of it, and it will just like blot, left and right. So you really have to know your mediums before you work on them. I always, whenever I have a fan wanting me to do a remark on something, a book that they have, it's like I have to see it first. I can't guarantee I'll work on it beforehand, because that could easily happen, and I'm like, sorry, man, you I don't know what to tell you. I didn't make the cover. So
you make it a Basquiat. There you go.
Yeah. It's an interpretive piece. Yeah.
So now, when you went from traditional to digital, what programs were you using?
I started out using Photoshop, which is a great program. Don't get me wrong. Lots of like, it's an infinite amount of like possibilities with that program. But I find like getting really deep into like Photoshop, you find how like clunky things are, and how much like sidestepping you need to do to make certain things happen. Because it's literally like a photo editing software. It's not really made for drawing. The drawing stuff is a plus on top of the photo editing stuff. And now it's like grown into like it's Photoshop and like Light Studio and like these all different programs that have spawned out of Photoshop. It's a huge program, which I still use today. But eventually I found some artists getting into Photoshop. Clip Studio a few years ago, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. How hard can it be? And I'd used Clip Studio like years ago, back when I was working at that comic studio doing manga, and I hated it. Oh my God, I hated it. It was, it was so annoying that it was like Photoshop, but nothing worked. Like, it was very, very clunky. Very, very clunky. The lasso tool was like hard to use, and it was impossible to draw and paint in. I was like, who in their right mind would ever want to use this on a daily basis? But a long time has come along, and the program is like grown by leaps and bounds. I can't believe how good Clip Studio is these days for drawing, illustration, painting, and people do animation with it too.
Yeah.
Everything, like, I find that for the if you want to do like one thing in Clip Studio, it takes like 2 or 3 steps, I find, or like some reconfiguring of like the settings in Photoshop to do, where whereas like in Clip Studio it's already built in. It's made for illustration. It's not made for photo editing or anything like that. And I love like the perspective tools in it. Man, the perspective tools are so, I like doing perspective by hand, but like, and as Mike knows, and all you guys here know, like, if you want to do a nice cityscape, like, your vanishing points are off of your drafting table, to be able to sit down in a canvas and just like drag out those 2 little vanishing points off to the side and forget about them. Oh, it's amazing. So yeah, I love Clip Studio.
There's a question here. White lightning with a 1 for the eye. I see what you did there. White lightning. Ben, have you ever considered being a regular monthly artist on a book? That's a great question, White Lightning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, White Lightning. I've been approached a lot about that, not by publishers, but just by fans, asking whether or not I do interior art, which I have before in the past. Years ago, I was doing like freelance gigs for artists here in Philly, and for like just random sequential work. My only problem is that I'm so slow. I can't hit 26 pages a month, each month. Simply because like over time I figured out that I'm more of like a painter, than an interior artist. Not saying that I can't do interior art. Like I wouldn't mind, you know, if somebody gave me the right script. And I've talked with Marvel before, you know, the head editor, one of the head editors there, Ricky, you know, he you know, brought it up to me at one time. He's like, "Hey, would you like to do some interior work? What do you think about that?" You know, and he's like, "Well, we have." I told him like my situation, like I can't, you know, I don't think I could hit 26 pages a month. He's like, "Well, we have scripts that, you know, at some point maybe you could like, you know, chip away at over the course of like 6 months. It could be like a one-shot deal or something like that." So, short answer, no, I can't do the 26 pages a month. It's mentally just too much for me to like take a script, transcribe it into pictures, make it look pretty. And again, like I was telling Mike earlier, that sweet spot kind of like falls off in that crunch, you know. So I don't think I'd ever be like truly happy doing like a monthly book. Doesn't, like I said, it will never not happen. It may happen at some point, but as to when, I'm not sure.
This is one of my favorites, Ben. I always like this one.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'm like looking at your Instagram. I'm not even looking at the chat now.
I think that's important.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that I think that that's important because there's some people who are single image artists. Not that they can't do a comic, but I think people who do a lot of comics have a different kind of brain, right? Like John Romita Jr. is a comic book artist, right? He's a storyteller. And that's naturally the way his brain works. And I know when I was teaching, you would have people who could just sit down and blast out a comic. And other people could sit down and blast out a really nice drawing. It's like we all have, you know, our own natural gear, I think, you know. And if you want to do a lot of like nice finish, it's hard to do a monthly comic. You know, it's hard to do 22 because I mean, usually, even when they promise you you're going to get a job, yeah, don't worry, you'll have 6 months to do it. No, you won't. By the time they get you the script and you start working on it, suddenly, well, we've rescheduled it now. So you were supposed to have, I can't tell you how many times that's happened. So yeah, you know. Like Alex Ross doesn't draw a monthly comic, right? There's a lot of things you have to sort of give up. You have to trade, I think, when you're doing a monthly comic.
And Ben, do you, and this is like maybe you can't answer this, it might be rhetorical, but do you assume when these people are asking you to do interiors that they are expecting painterly Ben interiors, like you're doing Marvels or something like that?
Yeah,
full-blown painted thing, right?
Yeah, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, what would interior work look like for me? And I think, you know, even Alex Ross, like, I mean, he used to do a lot of like just paint. He did the whole Marvel series in gouache and the subsequent books that he did all in gouache too. I think it's an amazing feat. I don't know how he did it. The man's a machine. For me, I think I would have to simplify my work. Definitely, it would probably be like more traditionally comic looking. You know, I'd probably just do line work, maybe some like shading. You know, so yeah, it's an interesting question. I haven't really sat down and like kind of thought about that. You know,
you'd almost have to design, like you're saying, you'd have to design a style to be able to do it.
Right? Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I do. I love artists that can like just make their interior work out of like just like light and shadow, you know. There's a few of them that I follow that do that really well, and I'm terrible with names. I'm blanking right now on them, but I think my work would look probably be similar to something like that, you know. Heavy darks, heavy shadows. If I was doing, that's the thing too, like with my work, like I tend to like, my style tends to adjust to the subject matter. That's that's a way to put it. If I'm doing like a say like a xenomorph, versus like a rogue, or like a Vampirella, I think the art, the style, the lighting would change and all that stuff along with that. So yeah, it's an interesting question. Like, I'm getting kind of like flustered thinking of how my interior work would look, at the end of the day,
Well, that touched on a question from Sloppy Octopus 6940 on the YouTubes. Question
Sloppy.
from Ben: who is your favorite character to draw?
Oh man, I hate that question. Yeah, I'm sure everybody does. It's like opening the asking me that question opens a Pandora's box of characters.
You just say Leon. It's fine.
Who doesn't, right? Yeah, I favorite character to draw. I mean, recently I've been doing I did a pretty cool Wolverine recently. He's pretty easy to kind of to pull off.
It's just two Batman kissing.
Yeah, basically, yeah. He's got to get those fins right,
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
I think I just blew somebody's mind in the chat. They're like, wait. Well, I don't want to speak for Ben, but I know that you a fan favorite of yours is your Jubilee drawing.
Oh, right. Yeah. That was a phase of mine for a while. Like I was the Jubilee guy on Instagram.
Yeah.
I had done. There's a guy that commissions me a lot. He asked me for 2 or 3 Jubilees, paintings, and it kind of went from there. I was doing like Jubilees and like remarks. I was doing Jubilee sketches and sketchbooks and things like that. People wanted to see that version of Jubilee.
Ben, what if they said, listen, Ben, we've got this Jubilee project with your name on it. Would that push you to do interiors?
I'm a big X-Men guy, man. Yeah.
You heard it here first.
The tipping point, yeah. Maybe my bosses are listening. We'll see.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Well, I have a question for you, Ben, because I'm going through your
Yes, sir.
And I love the kind of cycling through some of these posts, and we kind of see all of them end with where you're going to be at next. Now, this is kind of old, but I would love to talk to you about fitting in such an extreme studio calendar and also traveling, because you do a lot of shows. Has that been changing lately? Or are you kind of balancing this better? How do you fit in such a heavy workload and traveling to shows?
It's really well, to be totally honest with you, I haven't been doing too many shows recently. To give the audience some backstory, my dad had had medical problems and passed away, unfortunately, this past February. Not to drag the whole conversation down, but that really took my time away from doing a lot of shows. So to balance everything out with all that, you just kind of have to like Mike said, you have to find that sweet spot. One, be smart and don't overbook yourself. Don't schedule deadlines around New York Comic Con, because you're not going to get them done. You need a week to prep for a show and a week to kind of decompress for a show. I'm sure everybody here can relate to that. So when I do try to plan on my calendar, and I've been getting better at this. Like I'll literally have like a calendar sitting in front of my face at my desk with all my covers written out for the month or 2 months, and then all my shows that I'm supposed to be at, and you just kind of just go from there. And you kind of base it on base my availability on how big of a show it is. Like if it's something that I have to fly to, then obviously that's going to take me like a week to 2 weeks for us to prepare for. If it's a local show, something that's in Philly, then you just hop on a train, throw your stuff in your car, and go down to the convention hall. Or if it's in Jersey, you just go across the bridge. They can do that in a weekend. It's not a problem. And I can work my deadlines around that. But yeah, people think that going to comic conventions is like, you know, you just go there and you just show up. And for a lot of guys, it is like a lot of like the legends in the industry, you know. I'm sure like, you know, Mike and Jamar and Steve, you know, you guys can like go to a show and like just plunk down. People know who you are, you know, and have like minimal loadout for that. But I feel like because I'm still getting my start in the industry, I have to like, my visual presence has to be a little bit bigger, you know. So when I go to a show, I have to like bring banners, and sometimes I have lights on my stuff and things like that. And I have like my artwork printed out at like 16 by 24 canvases, and I have that behind me. And all that stuff takes time to pack up, you know, get to a show. And I haven't done like a giant show on a plane to you know, to fly to, I think in like a year or two, because of the family stuff I had going on. So yeah, again, you have to take all that into consideration. You know, I want to do like, you know, I want to do more shows in 2020. It's 2026, right? I forget what year it is. It's 2027 next year. I will be getting back into doing more shows, more bigger shows. And recently I've been doing like smaller stuff because, you know, simply like I said, like we can pack up our stuff. Me and my fiance can pack up our stuff, and over the course of maybe like 3 or 4 days, or even less, you know, and get it out to a show, maybe New York or New Jersey or upstate Pennsylvania, whenever, you know, within the tri-state area. But if we're going to say San Diego, we're going to C2E2 over, you know, to another country for, you know, that takes a lot of time to prepare for, you know, maybe
it's
like
also
a month or
very
two.
expensive.
It takes a lot out of your bottom line for sure, Mike. Yeah. You have to kind of, you calculate all that. Am I going to make this back? How much of it am I going to make back? Is it worth my time? You know? So yeah.
How many glizzies can you eat in a concession stand?
Right, exactly. Yeah. How many $9 hot dogs at a convention hall can you know, ingest before you get sick?
You mentioned commissions. Do you do many of those?
I used to, yeah. I used to. Like I said, my the cover career has picked up considerably, and so I don't really get to take on a lot of commissions like I would like to. When I started really getting a good, I would say like decent. I was doing maybe like at a show, I would take on maybe like 10 or 11 commissions. I don't know how I did all those commissions in a weekend, you know. And to be honest with you, they were just like pencil sketches, most of them. But eventually I branched out into doing like watercolor at shows. That's like the most foolhardy thing you could do at a comic convention, to take on a watercolor commission, you know, at a show. And then I started doing like a Copic marker sketches, which are a lot easier to manage at shows. So at shows, I tend to take on maybe like 2 or 3 at the most. Like at a big show, if it's a 4-day show, I'll take on like 2 or 3 or 4. If it's a smaller show, I'll take on like maybe 1 or 2. And at home, like I said, I have like a backlog still running of stuff. It's like I always keep it printed and staring at me on my cork board in front of me of all the things I owe people. And that I only have maybe like 4 or 6. Under 10. I think it's under 10 pieces I owe people. So it's suffice to say, I don't really take that many on anymore. And I think after I clear this whole plate off, I'm going to take a break from doing personal commissions and just do some stuff for myself for a while. So
nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, you know, one of the things about working at a show, it's like the exact opposite of your normal working situation, because people kept asking me at the last show, was I going to do commissions? And I said, I was so busy signing, I'm going to start drawing. Sign a book. I'm going to start. I'm going to sign up. You can't. And then you go back to your hotel room, and then you're working half the night. So you actually work harder at a show if you take too many commissions, because if you're signing stuff, you can't draw during the day because so many people are coming and they want you to sign stuff. So I think what I do now is I tell people, I told several people, if you want a nice sketch, I'll do it at home. I can't do it at the con. It's just too much, and I know how that is, because also is you don't want to take something and then owe it to people, because I've done that a couple times where you owe people for like a couple months and you feel bad, but I also don't want to hack out something, and then you see like your drawing, you go, oh, I should have done a better job.
Right. And then they don't know the Iron Chef element of it, that you're working on like 2 sawhorses and a plank of wood and the lighting.
Oh, yeah.
You're freezing and the shadows are all wrong. And
my candle flicker. Right?
Yeah.
Lighting up on your table.
Yeah, the lighting is never bright enough at any of those shows. It's always just like at that point that it starts to give you eye strain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I want to go back to what Mike was saying about sleep. Sleep is so important. I can't stress that enough for an artist. You need sleep for proper mental function. And like Mike was saying, like if you're working all day, and then you have to take that work home at a show. I'm mentioning a show. Like if you're at a show and you're working all day, and then you get off, you have a dinner, and these shows don't end till like 6, 7. New York Comic Con doesn't end till like 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
then you have to get something to eat. A lot of artists go home early, but a lot of the guys like myself who are just starting out, and other people that I know, like they stay till the end because you got to make that money, and then you get back to your hotel at like 11 o'clock if you want to have dinner with friends. You want to see some people that and then you're up till like 4 in the morning. I used to pull nights like that. And then you go into the show the next day with like 2-3 hours of sleep and be functioning. And I find that's worn to me so much that I can't do that anymore. Like I show up at a show. If you talk to me Thursday at a 4-day show and compare to who I am Sunday, like I'm like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm not the same person,
My favorite phrase for that one Sunday morning of the show was sunglasses and Starbucks. You just show up hugging that cup, like, bro, come back in 2.
Yeah, I don't know how people do that. Where then they would go and like get schnockered on Saturday night.
Oh man!
For all day, you do then like Sunday, you're just like super crunchy all day. Yeah,
not a good look. Ben, I had a art question for you.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to inside baseball because we've known each other for a really long time. I know that kind of one of your super early influences was, and maybe you can't see it or I can't see it like I used to see it. You're heavily influenced by like Capcom artists, right? Like Bingus and all those kind of guys. And did I say that right? Was it Bingle or Bingus or whatever?
Bingus, yeah,
Bingus. Like these tiny heads and these big bodies, like Street Fighter characters. And for some way, the dude just made it work. He made it look super cool. But if I did, it would just be a dude with a tiny head and something's wrong with it. And your style has turned into your own thing over time. One of the things that I love that you started adding later, and you could see it in your color work, which I think is fantastic, is that watercolor. Like whenever you started to just kind of inherit watercolor into your work, I think it changed your whole palette as far as your color work. Can you talk about adding that medium to your comic work and how it just may have changed your outlook?
Yeah, like going back to the whole Brian Stelfreeze influence, like he really inspired me to get into watercolor and just kind of play around with it. I originally toyed around with like watercolor like years and years ago, and I hated it. And it turned out I was using watercolor on Xerox paper or copy paper.
No, you were using the wrong paper.
Like, no, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You dummy, you're using non-copy paper. It's terrible,
Mhm.
So yeah, picking it up again not recently, but like 8 or 9 years ago, I guess it is at this point. And using it with like the right paper, it's just I wouldn't say it was, it's a joy to work with. Like I know a lot of artists come up to me and they're like, I don't know how you work with water. I hate watercolors. It's so hard to layer with. You're always fighting the paper. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get you, dude. I totally get you. And you know what helped me? It was working with Copic markers. funny enough, it's the same kind of theory to it. Laying down, say, like if you're working a grisaille, laying down like a 9 and then blending, trying to create a nice gradient with that, working back through the different markers to like a lighter tone. That's basically what you're doing with watercolor in a way, only it's more, obviously it's water, it's more unpredictable at times. So it's I tend to be like slower and more methodical with my work. If you're like one of those artists that just like splashing art, it's not splashing art, splashing paint across the canvas and like getting results like right away, it's not for you. It is a medium you have to obviously be very patient with, and like I said, that blow dryer comes in handy. Get that blow dryer out and hit it and get that those spots dry. But yeah, it opened my world up to like and my fiance, she's like an amazing watercolor painter herself. She opened my eyes to like working with a broad array of colors, color mixing, color theory, and going back to like I was saying before how my like upbringing in art was kind of like rudimentary and not very structured. It really showed in like my approach to like color and stuff like that, and dealing with watercolor and physical pans of paint. It really kind of helped me broaden my color theory in a way, So, and then you get to like the fun thing about watercolor is that you get to layer it with other mediums too. Like I started out doing these Copic sketches in grisaille and grayscale, and then I found that over time, like I think through a few other artists that I kind of like piggybacked off of, like you can like take that grisaille or that that black and white painting, you can layer watercolor over top of it and bring out some like really. It takes a while. It's not immediate. You have to kind of like really layer it, but you can layer on some like watercolor on top of that and get some really cool effects. And then go over top of that with like some gouache. So yeah, it's a very versatile medium. It's not all about just sticking with doing like straight watercolor. You can really do some cool things with it. But you have to be patient, though. That's my crux of my speech.
So the very interesting thing about kind of like you working digitally so much is that I feel like it translates very well into your digital work. So like, I don't know, how are you kind of making the stuff work the same way digitally? You know what I'm saying?
Digitally, like I don't do watercolors digitally.
No, that's what I'm saying. But like, it still feels like the flow is still there,
right?
When you're working digitally,
right. Yeah, the color theory, understanding the way you kind of handle, your lighting has to remain the same. When I work digitally, I think I turned into like an oil painter, which I would love to be. I would love to do. I've been actually taken classes in oil painting recently, and when I work digitally, I tend to be a little more looser these days with my shapes and like my line. I don't say line quality, but just like my rendering is like tends to be a little bit looser than with watercolor. Watercolor really more precise, because you have to be if you're dealing with like a very unpredictable medium such as watercolor. Like obviously I'm a fan of like the Hildebrands. I'm a fan of like Dean Cornwell and a few other guys, Eric Gist, Assad Ribic, just to name a few artists that I follow. And I would love to like emulate those styles in my work, and that comes with using the brushes that I use these days tend to be more oil paintery. So I'm starting out with like a nice. For example, this one painting I'm working on right now, I'm starting with like a nice warm canvas, and then I'm slowly layering on layers of cool color, cool hues, and going down that route, So I hope that answers your question. I'm like just trying to get off topic sometimes with
no, it's
yeah. I think I'm like an oil painter, by day, and by night I'm like a watercolor painter.
It's like those '80s movies. Angel is a schoolgirl by day. All right. Went off with a tangent there. So, all right, Ben, we're kind of running out of road here. You've done a really great job telling everybody about yourself and how you got here. What are you currently working on that you can talk about?
Like I said, like I had some family stuff going on recently, so my schedule was kind of slowed down a little bit, starting off 2026. And so I'm always working on something though.
Right.
It doesn't mean the wheels have stopped here in the studio.
Right.
I'm still doing variants for Marvel and DC. That's not going to end anytime soon. I'm still working with Wizards of the Coast, doing cards for them. Again, stuff I can't talk about, And what else am I doing? I'm doing work with Sideshow too. Sideshow Collectibles. We did a really fun piece recently. I don't know if they haven't really talked about it yet, so I can't talk about it myself. But it's an old throwback to an old like 50s model that it's really threw a monkey wrench into my portfolio, because I don't really do stuff like that, and they wanted something that looked like an old like 50s pinup, in the style of Gil Elfgren or one of those guys, So I did that recently. That's finished, so you may or may not hear about that sometime soon. And I'm always busy working on stuff. I wish I could talk more about the stuff I'm working on, but yeah.
Well, let's just go ahead, Mike. There's a question, but go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, do you keep a sketchbook? How do you structure your day? Do you warm up and then how do you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. I usually start off the day by getting up and getting coffee, and then I wake up, and then I go stand in front of my tablet and start working. I really wish it was more complicated than that, but it isn't. I really should sit down every morning and start sketching. I keep a good sketchbook. I do keep sketchbooks, but I don't sketch enough, but my method to the madness every morning is this, because like there's mornings, and I get a lot of you guys here could relate. There are days where it's hard to get started. You're like, and you sit and you kind of stare at the page. You're like, what am I doing here? Like, it's especially if it's like a piece that you're having a hard time with, and you don't know where to start. I've trained myself to kind of just sit down and just start anywhere on the painting. Just get going. And to give you a breakdown of my day, I'll work all morning, till about like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll take a lunch break for an hour or two, and I'll come back to and probably work all the way until like 11 at night, midnight. And that's where I get most of my workout in, artistic workout. And I'll if I have time for commissions, I'll take a break in between. But for me, like, and I don't know how you guys out there feel about this, but I have a hard time like switching gears, when working on multiple things. Like if I'm working on something that I'm really into, I tend to like want to stick with that until it's finished. If I tend to pull away and have to focus on something else, it tends to irk me a little bit. I don't know why, I hate things. I hate leaving things unfinished with my work. I like seeing it all the way to the end. So, but yeah, I do keep sketchbooks around that, like, they're like, I don't know if you guys can see any of this stuff here. I can like hold up a few things that I have here. This is a pencil to pencil exclusive. I'm not sure if I showed this on my I showed this on my Patreon before, but I do keep a watercolor sketchbook here.
Okay.
That looks like that's 77 Spidey.
Yeah, the bug eyes, the silvery bug eyes. Yeah. Just like I do like head studies and stuff like that when I go to like museums. Just keep up with my traditional skills. So it's not like I don't sketch at all, but it's like few and far between. I tend to spend so much time. There's a
Nice.
and then a
Grifter
there.
Little grifter.
Yeah.
I think that happens to people sometimes is that when you were young and you started out, you sketched more, and then as you become busier with commercial work, you sketch less.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm always like trying to you're trying to like beat that deadline. You know, and I want, like I said before, like I was saying before, like I want to turn it in at 110%. I don't want to turn it in and it's half-assed, you know. And if that involves me like working all week long until like 11, 12 o'clock on like one piece, you know, and setting it there for like 2 or 3 hours so I can just stare at it, you know, and not to focus on anything else, then because that's the way it has to be sometimes, you know. Yeah, it's kind of like it's a good thing and a bad thing. Like I think I spend too much time working on one thing, like hyper focusing on one thing. I should be like keeping myself occupied with other pieces at the same time, but it don't really work like that, you know.
Ben, we are almost out of time. Look at you. I love it.
Unbelievable, man.
But I think if we have time, Steve, do you think we could shoehorn in a lightning round?
Yeah, I think we got a few in here. We've gone through a lot, but we got some additional questions coming in under the wire. You touched on this. But Tristan on YouTube, any favorable painted cover artists you really enjoy? So maybe not necessarily the influences you discussed, but others you just really enjoy.
Stuff that I'm well, I grew up looking at back in, I can't believe this is as long ago, probably like the late aughts, Olivier Coipel, that European artist, really opened my eyes to like shape and form. You know, he doesn't do a whole lot of cover work anymore, I don't think, but his artwork's amazing. It really blew me away. And stuff from like recently, I've been like really looking at obviously Julian Tedesco. He's been doing covers for forever. Some define him as like a modern Norman Rockwell with his the way he does expressions and the way he does his compositions. Just brilliant stuff, you know. And you know, being a child of the 90s, obviously you grew up with like Jim Lee and all those guys, and Scott Campbell, you know, all those guys are brilliant too. So recently another artist that just came to mind, Paulo Rivera. You know, his stuff is, his gouache paintings are phenomenal. I talked about his work in like another interview I did not too long ago, where I was looking over his Ghost Rider Marvel piece that he did, the set of pages that he did not too long ago for Marvel, and those are great. So I hope that answers the question. That's just a few. Like I follow like maybe 100 or so different artists, but those just come to mind for me. Yeah,
that's great. Duck1773 on YouTube. Love Brian Stelfreeze's work as well. I thought for years he was doing watercolor, but when you're in Baltimore, he told me actually he uses acrylics, but watered down like watercolor.
Yeah.
Follows up with, either way, love his and your work.
Yeah.
And then he had a follow-up question. Squeeze it into the lightning round here. Ben, are you influenced by any non-comic book watercolor artists like Sargent or Homer? I also love Peach Minoko's color work.
Yeah, Peach Momoko is like a brilliant artist too. She is so fast, the way she knocks out those paintings. I'm not familiar with the other artist you mentioned. Homer? Is that the other artist you mentioned?
And Sargent, yeah.
Oh yeah, John Singer. Yeah. It's again, like going back to what I was trying to emulate with my digital paintings, like the looseness that Sargent had. You know, I'm a fan of all those guys. All my. Well, I guess the best way to put it is that, you know, I think Brian Stelfreeze put this best. He says, like, I'm a student of the dead. You know, if you're an artist and you're in the ground, you probably have like an amazing portfolio somewhere, you know, that I need to like look at, you know. So yeah.
Cool. And Stuckhead, are you doing any more Marvel Snap art? Love seeing your work pop up there.
Yeah, that's I forgot to mention Marvel Snap. Yeah, I did a few cards for them directly and indirectly. I had done like a Scarlet Witch cover. I believe it was like 2 years ago or so, and they wound up using that for a Marvel Snap card.
Hmm.
And then they reached out, and I did a few more of those. I don't think they've released them all. They're like very similar to Wizards of the Coast. They tend to kind of hold them in like a locker somewhere until they need them, you know.
They put them in a drawer. They put them in a drawer for a while.
Yeah, in the freezer for a while, and defrost them. But yeah, I will be hopefully doing more in the future. It's been a while since I've reached out to them, but I would love to do more. Yeah.
And our last question, and this is from like an hour ago, so I'm not sure what the context was, and I'm fairly sure this is a pop culture reference. Bill O'Donnell on the YouTube says, "So Ben, is Obi-Wan or Anakin?"
Oh, I think Bill was referencing Ben and our relationship. Are you Obi-Wan or Anakin in our thing?
Yeah, I'm definitely Obi. Well, actually, let's say it's mutual, because we're like, as good buddies, like we're always teaching each other things as we go through life, you know.
Oh, it's very succinct. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, that was lightning round. You survived.
You did it. What up, Nick? All right. Well, dude, we did it. You got through it. Look at this. Oh, Mike, were you going to say something else? Or we're going to start heading out.
No, it's always interesting to me how people start their day, because some people warm up to it and they kind of work around and they get down to it, and other people I just sit down, like today and yesterday, because I had to catch up because I did the convention.
Mm-hmm.
I just sat down and I started drawing, and I didn't like it, and I just kept drawing. Didn't like it all the way through to the end, and I just kept drawing. You know, and you can erase and you can fix, but at a certain point, you just got to get it done. You know, and maybe you don't love it, and maybe it's not perfect, but you got to get it done, and because when you have a deadline on something like the strip, you can't say, well, you know, I'm going to wait. Right?
Yeah.
So that's also, I think, a difference between working on a single piece and then working on something like a comic strip or a comic book. You know, I think the other thing is that if you do a week you don't like, you'll have a week following it really close that you can try to do a better job of.
I love it. Well, Ben, thank you so much. I know you're a busy individual and you need to get back to the table, much like all of us do. So I want to thank you. I know it's been a long time in the making, sir, to get you on this program.
Yeah. Thank you all, you guys, for having me. You're all legends in my book, you know. And I'm a big fan of the show. I've watched watch you guys for a long time. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I'm excited to watch people react to seeing your work in the slap in the magazine. I mean, the
oh, and you guys didn't talk about the bowler, the bowler thing.
Oh yeah. So one of our long in the dirt projects was Stan the Street Fighting Bowler, which was a spinoff from the Jamar Chronicles, and I have been needling young Ben to do something, and he kind of redesigned Stan, and it was it kind of had a heavy kind of like manga crossover appeal. And there's a couple of, like, there's an ash can laying around, there's a couple of web comics laying around, and maybe we're in a retirement home, we'll do Stan again. We'll actually finish something.
Can people find those out there somewhere?
I mean, some people have them in their short boxes. We sold stuff to people, and there's some posters laying around. But
you'll have to
flying around somewhere.
You'll have to put them up on your Patreon.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah,
create an eBay alert when someone.
That's we're flooding the market. I love it. Oh, there's some things on the way out of here. Marlena, the artist, says we're all very proud of you, Ben. Amazing work.
Hey, Marlena, how are you?
That's so awesome. And Nick says he's got a bunch of stand prints. Look at that, man. Good job.
Yeah.
We're bending the light. I love it. All right, Ben. Thank you so much. You've been a fantastic guest. Stay with us as we close out the show. We've been putting your information up on the screen all night. Please check out Ben online at Ben Harvey Art, and also go check him out on the gram at Ben Harvey Art. He has a Patreon that is very well kept, and it would behoove you to join Ben's Patreon. So some housekeeping on our way out the door. Carlos B. McNeil, who was supposed to be here at the beginning of the month, is now next week. This month is spiraling by. So come check us out next week live for Carlos B. McNeil. I'm very excited. Carl's an old friend. And also tomorrow night, it's coffee break week, Steve Conley. So come hang out with me tomorrow on the same Bat channel and watch me drink a cup of coffee and run my mouth when I'm out of said coffee. Video over. So much programming on the Pencil to Pencil channel. So, all right. So for my co-host and myself, you know, the new player in our universe and in our timeline, Dr. Walnuts. You know him with the winged hair. He goes, Hey Mike, Quasimodo predicted all of this. And what he predicted was that we are in the end game. So it will behoove all of us to go ahead, Ben, you got to get it together, to wash those Kirby hands. See those Kirby hands, Ben? Yeah, there you go. Nice flat fingers, flat tips.
It's an honor. My first Kirby hands.
Yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? It feels like you made it. All right, guys, have a good night. See you tomorrow for coffee break. Be good.